Welcome to the Local Marketing Source Weekly Update, brought to you by localmarketingsource.com.
This week's Local Marketing Update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter @ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/ScottPGallagher.
Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Gallagher here with Local Marketing Source, bringing our weekly local marketing industry update. Now, next week, LMS member call is going to be Wednesday. Wow, November 9th, 2016. Unreal. This year has just gone by. Wow. And that's going to be at 4 p.m. Central or 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming on the call today. This time next week, our country, the United States, is going to have a new president. A new president voted, not necessarily inaugurated yet. There may be some interesting developments between the time the president gets voted and inauguration, and who knows what's to come. And same thing. Tonight is being labeled as the most historic baseball game in baseball history. It's pretty exciting being in Chicago now. I was not a baseball fan up until last season. I'm definitely a bandwagon jumper, but tonight you've got two teams that have not won since 1945, Cleveland, and Chicago that hasn't won since 1908. You think about how much times have changed. I'm going to be talking about how much SEO has changed in 10 years, let alone 108 years. Just amazing. And, some of these lessons are to capitalize on the now and what's happening. So it's fun. It's fun that we're getting to the end of the year. We've got a new year of SEO. SEO is constantly changing, but at the same time, its principles are stagnant. And the changes in politics that we can relate to it, or sports. It's fun to always do that. So this week, I'm going to share some opinions on Google and towards them being biased towards reputation damaging content. That doesn't sound good, does it? And then, like I said, I'm going to talk about some of the changes in SEO over the last decade and some of the big key points that are in relation to that and whatnot. But before I get into any of that stuff, just want to remind everybody that the LMS mobile sales app is available on both the Apple Store and Google Play Store. It's a free download. There's no advertisements, no in-app purchases at this time. Future versions are definitely going to have that. Right now, we're looking for user feedback. I've used the app. My team has used the app. Colleagues have used the app and all achieved successes in sales. That's one of the most difficult pieces of this business, is getting clients. And it's something that just makes it a little bit easier. But it really, all the newest and brightest and shiny objects that are out there and people sell them, this is the end all be all. This thing's useless if it's not used properly, like any tool that's out there. You just can't teach a fish to climb a tree. Sorry, that's the way it is. So there's a lot of fish in our world that are trying to climb that SEO tree, and it's not for them. And to go out and get clients, it's not just to build it and they will come. You've got to earn the right, and I really like that term, earn the right. But this is really a tool that can help you get to the important things, to get to having to earn the right to somebody's business a lot easier and quicker, and finding the right people whose business you should try and earn, as opposed to just blanketing yourself and going out there. One thing we've learned with internet is it's not about traffic. It's about qualified traffic, and that's never changed. Qualifying your audience has always been a piece of the marketing bubble. So go ahead and download the app. It's called the Local Sales Prospector. If you're on the LMS list, you definitely, or read it, you had that chance. Or if you're on Facebook, you probably saw some ads that were running. But in any event, let's talk about Google's bias towards reputation damaging content. So a business, an individual, a professional, sports team, politician has negative communication about them. There's a massive opinion that's circling that Google is biased towards the negative content as opposed to positive. Now, I've been thinking about this, and here, I'm just going to do a quick check here. All right, I've been thinking about this, and as a user, I don't think it's right. But in Google's position, I think it's important. And, Canada and the United States are two. I also lived in South Korea. I've lived in 3 countries, and, moving to South Korea was a big culture shock. All with everything, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, there's things that are just done differently. Moving from Canada to the United States, it wasn't so much of a culture shock. You can get culture shock effectively moving within this country. If you're moving from the Northeast coast to Texas, to California, to Oregon, down to Florida, it's just different lifestyles, but there's still a bigger jump moving as a Canadian. There's some big things that Americans adopt and the way that they operate. And marketing is one of those things, especially with the election that's going on. The way politicians market themselves here is just so much more blatantly in your face. It's clearly obvious that elements of fear are brought in. And, it's been an opinion of mine that American culture is, not just my opinion, of course, and others, it's an opinion I buy into, is that Americans are raised on fearing those in different classes, whether it be the rich and wealthy, or those in power, celebrities and political power, and authoritarians like the police. And I remember growing up that as children, being a policeman or a fireman, astronaut were all the elite. And now, kids, it's all about being a celebrity of sort. But nonetheless, with Google, when they're trying to show an opinion on somebody, their biggest audience is Americans, and Americans are bred and raised to consume negativity and make opinions off of it. Look at the current political landscape. There's zero focus among anybody. Think of anybody that you've had conversations with in regards to politics, and I don't care where you are in the world, you've had conversations. And it's focused and it's centered around the negative things of each of these individuals. There's very little, and there's no press coverage in terms of all the wonderful things that they've done. And the fact of the matter is both these individuals have done good things throughout their life. It's not all bad, but I'm not here to defend either one or to defend the American political system. I'm just trying to demonstrate there's parallels between Google favoring biased reputation content as opposed to focused on all the good. It's important for them to do that because us as a collective group of human beings and users require that in order to make our decisions. That's my theory. What do you think? Do you think that, it's healthy for Google to do this? If somebody's searching for pizza, and Google makes the assumption that they're looking for local pizza providers, what do you want to see? And what do you think Google should be showing? Now, as we talk about change, one thing that I learned about history that's important to know, and why it's important to know history, so we don't make the same mistakes. And history shows patterns, whether it be history in the religious world or the political world or the business world. History does repeat itself, and these patterns can be identified. Going back to the 80s when the fax machine came out, we're moving into a paperless world. Well, what do you think 30 years later? Look around. Is there paper? Of course. The fax machine didn't do that. The mobile devices haven't done that. Computers haven't eliminated it. It's not going to go away. And there's reasons for that deeply rooted into our psychological makeup. Throughout history, we can see these types of faux pas that have happened. And, looking at the SEO world, where it started more than 10 years ago, but, the big changes really started to happen about 10 years ago. And back then was when, YouTube was founded, Facebook was founded. And what changed in 2004, 2005 with the internet? It'd been around for 15 years. Bandwidth increased, so it allowed for streaming of video. Mobile bandwidth was not fast enough at the time, but our cable modems were definitely fast enough. And enough users got on board of the internet that the social paradigm was able to exist. The social paradigm could not exist in 1995, when my aunt and my grandmother and my mom were not on the internet. There was just, it was a world of techies. So I had a social paradigm with just tech users. But it was around 2005 that we hit critical mass, that the social paradigm was created. And so products and services on the internet were created based from these social paradigms, and they flourished based off of these social paradigms. Businesses that had been around for 10, 11 years, like Amazon, just exploded with that as that mass was achieved. And these social factors, this social paradigm created factors that could be measured on the internet, in turn aligning with what the search engines wanted, was trust and authority of content to determine its rankings. So social has been around for longer than what we think it has. And it was 2009 that I could remember one of the people I followed took a picture on their mobile device and sent it out to their Twitter followers, and it was instant. It was like, look at where I am. I don't know why, but that blew me away. It blew me away. And I ran out and got a mobile phone immediately after that. And I was one of those first people to take pictures, and people were like, oh my God. And maybe it was 2008. But it was a game changer. And so these social factors, although they started 10 years ago, have developed into a variety of different measurements that, it even took battles between companies in 2010 and 2012, like Google, whether they were allowed to read certain social content, i.e. local business reviews. Remember, it was 2009 that Google Maps was introduced. It was April 6th, as a matter of fact, 2009. And I'm curious, wonder how accurate I am. I don't know. Lead map, Google, google.com, April 6, 2009. Maybe it's just April. Doesn't seem to be enough on there. Yeah, there it is. Anyhow, I digress. You know, it's just tested my mind, I guess. So I'm just trying to have a free chat right now in regards to the, you know, the ecosystem of what's going on inside of the heads of the search engines. And going back all the way to 1996, when Larry Page and Sergey Brin founded Google, it was founded off of Larry's father, who was a scientist, and he noticed as his father's content got republished, his authority went up, and that's where the linking came in. But when we step back and don't even think about the internet and think about Google's algorithm and think about local businesses, what in history has made local businesses survive and thrive? It's those business owners that are working hard in their company and putting in a lot of hours. They are constantly in touch, no matter how big they get. They're in touch at some point in time with customers and their industry. They're out in the field, they're out in the sales floor, they are learning they're attending industry events, and they're learning new things for their business, and they're sharing it with their customers and sharing it with their prospective customers and sharing it with their colleagues. And their colleagues like them and give them pats on the back, and their colleagues go and talk about this person, this leader. This person's business has got customers that stay with them for a long time and come back on a regular basis. And when their customers hear about a friend of theirs that has a problem, they'll tell them about this business. You know, these are all things that happen in successful businesses that grow. And for a business owner that recognizes all of these different things, they go out and they make these things happen. So there's really no secret, in my opinion, to running a business, or, you know, you don't need high education or a degree. There's a reason why many people that aren't educated are successful. They just know the fundamentals. Basically, they do what our grandparents told us. They're just good, hard workers, and they take care of people. Well, for the last 11 years that I've been in SEO, it's probably been 5 or 6 years that the light bulb went on, somewhere around 2009, that I went, well, rather than trying to figure out what the search engines are looking for, let me speculate on maybe where they want to be. And when I recognized on where they would want to be, the easiest way to give them what they wanted, where they wanted to be, was that old school business model. Was being involved in the community, making your customers happy, doing all that stuff. How they measure it, well, fuck, that's up to them. I'm not an engineer at Google. I can come up with a variety of different ideas and thoughts and whatnot, but I'm not in that war room trying to figure out how we're going to measure all of these different elements and what elements we're going to measure. I have to believe as a marketer that as time goes on, they're going to get better and better at measuring these elements, but they're still far away from it. But we're at the point that if we focus on the right things, we get the ranking results. So, there's been a lot of talk in the industry about how SEO has changed. And I always say, no, I don't think it has changed at all. I unfortunately did not get it in my first 4 or 5 years of being an SEOer. So I had to change. But I don't think the SEO philosophy has changed. But what we have seen in terms of these elements that they can measure is the rise of content. This was with the Panda update in 2011 and 12. to learn about spammy content and keyword stuffing and, creating quality content. Today, content is still quote unquote king. With the Penguin update in 2012, we saw the death of all the linking schemes. It was amazing that it took that long really to get away from it, but you couldn't just create link networks. You couldn't just link from anywhere. You had to get links from authoritative places. I remember in 2008, I launched my first course in 2009, and I was getting into a lot of their different circles and whatnot. But when I went to these internet marketing conferences, I felt like a minion. I felt tiny because I was dealing in the local SEO world. I questioned myself a lot whether I should be doing this, whether it was going to be. In hindsight now, I wish I'd saw it that it was going to be as big as it is. I had no idea. That was my smaller mind thinking, perhaps. But I felt like a minion. And it's local SEO is an 80, or by the end of next year is going to be an $80 billion industry. It's somewhere between 63 billion and 80 billion today. It's phenomenal. We've seen changes in the real estate of these landing pages, of the search engine results pages. We've seen big changes over the last 10 years. And, there's a whole variety. I can remember when just mixed results in the Google algorithm were a big thing. Indented listings, we used to call different things that we'd get, and, they'd change. But that real estate has changed massively. Social factors and the rise of the knowledge graph, since 2012. Artificial intelligence, where, the knowledge graph, I think for me, the easiest way to describe it is the stepping stone in between artificial intelligence and dumb terminals. The knowledge graph lies somewhere in between. Mobile, mobile is a big change, but rather than me saying mobile changes, let me say display prioritization. Because this evolution hasn't stopped. It's just started to get going. And mobile has changed a lot. But, if I'm building an app for a computer, it's going to be very different than the app on a mobile phone, which is going to be different than the app on a tablet, which we're going to start to see is going to be different than the apps on our smart TVs, which we're going to see is going to be different than the apps designed for our cars, which is going to be different than the apps designed for our mobile assistants in our home. Assuming that a mobile assistant is going to control our garage doors and our heating and our lighting and our locks and our shoes. I just saw a pair of shoes today that literally has screen built into it and has a mobile app that you can change the screen of your shoe, as much as you want. Pretty much any new devices that are maybe a year from, or 2 years, 1 to 2 years from now. But of course, the marketplace is starting to begin to get saturated with these smart devices. But in 2 years, the marketplace will be saturated. And it's going to be like, I could remember when air conditioning and power windows were reserved for luxury vehicles. If you had power windows when I was a kid in your car, your folks had money. Obviously, we've seen the death of keywords. Need I say any more? There's been a reason why I do not use keyword tools for 3 or 4 years now. So let me get back to where I started with all this, is that it's important to learn about history. And with these weekly updates, I really try to get an understanding of what's going on with different businesses out there, different acquisitions, try to hypothesize on what's going on in these leaders' heads, where they've been, and speculate on where we think that they may be going. You know, when we look at the changes over the last 10 years, of all the big things, you know, the death of keywords. Well, keywords were absolutely everything. I remember learning SEO in 07, 08, and it was, if you fuck that up, your whole game is done. It was so important. It was the most important step, people frequently said. It's incredible. You know, the knowledge graph, you know, with artificial intelligence, and you can't really fake artificial, or you can create bogus content, and you can create personas that, you know, a polarized group of people are liking something. You know, the media, traditional media, gets away with it. They're having a really hard time getting away with it with the growth of social media. You know, you just jump on your Facebook feed and you're going to read a variety of different opinions, but I'll tell you what, it's confusing these days because you don't trust anything anymore out there on the internet. It's so hard to trust sources as individuals. That items like the knowledge graph, when somebody bitches about a company, they're heartfelt about it. So the more that the search engines can understand people's emotions, I believe, are the caveat. If you can develop an algorithm that measures emotion on the internet of a group, you're going to be picked up by these search engines by a lot. But that's all I have to say today. I'm going to take a 30-second break and I'll be back and answer any questions that you folks may have.
Thanks for watching the Local Marketing Industry Update. We've got these things coming out every single week, so if you liked with what you heard, just click the button right above me right here to subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to get a little bit more, right over here, go check out localmarketingsource.com. We've got free reports that you can grab. You can even register for a free marketing course to get in and see the portal. Or just go ahead and follow us on some of the social channels. We'll be around. Until next time.